The Haar Islands, known more commonly as the Golden Apple Archipelago, are a group of islands far off the shore of the continent of Teyvat, belonging to no nation from the mainland. During the brief time travelers were able to explore this area, they could uncover many secrets regarding its past. In this video, I'll go over the history of these islands, as well as the potential for travelers to be able to visit them again in the future. Also, if you like this video, consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot and I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, let's move right on and get into the video. The Golden Apple Archipelago's history spans back as far as the Archon War, specifically around the time that the Animo Archon Barbatos rose to power 2,600 years ago. After ascending to godhood, he used his new powers to terraform the land of Mondstadt. For those who don't know, Mondstadt used to be a desolate land of ice, thanks in large part to the blizzards of Andrias and his rivalry with Decarabian. Anyways, during his reshaping of Mondstadt, Barbatos sent a chunk of a mountain flying into the sea, which landed upside down and became known as Menatius Isle. There was also a Sealy on this island, and following it would activate the quest The Winding Homeward Way. The quest would have you activate some elemental monuments, and then the Sealy would lead you through a time tunnel back to Mondstadt, presumably near where this chunk of land originally was. An unknown amount of time later, a group of people get shipwrecked on this isle, including a grandmother who possessed a family heirloom from her hometown. This heirloom would be passed down the generations, as heard in the Conch Retrospection 1 stories. The time when these people were stranded here was a minimum of 4 or 5 generations, but it could have been far more than this. After a long time of these people living here, they would eventually be rescued and returned to the land of Teyvat. The rescuers, though, were also briefly stuck in the archipelago. So let's go over their story now, and just who they are and why they ended up on these islands in the first place. Ako Domeki was a famous Inazuman bandit and pirate from Sarai Island who lived around 500 years ago. He commanded a fleet of over 10 ships, including his flagship Saramaru, and he also was the original wielder of the Ketch. After the Cataclysm, he got familiar with Asasi Hibiki, and frequently visited her at the Asasi Shrine. However, sometime after the city at Rito was built, he started a rebellion against the shogunate. During one of these battles, he discovered a Magukenki puppet, which he was able to defeat and steal. Throughout the rebellion, Domeki tried his best to prevent Hibiki from getting involved in the conflict. However, during one battle, Hibiki decided to try and help Domeki by unsealing the Thunder manifestation to destroy the shogunate's ships. While it was successful in this endeavor, it also created a huge electrostorm in the middle of the island that destroyed most of the surrounding area, and the remnants of which are still there to this day. In the aftermath, Domeki and his crew were swept away. Some of them, including Domeki's chief mate Genome, were sent so far away that they ended up at the Golden Apple Archipelago. One of the ships that went this far held the Magukenki that Domeki stole, and it has resided on the central platform of these islands ever since. After a while of being trapped on this island, both the pirates and the islanders decided to devise an escape route. Using the archipelago's strange features, one was eventually found, and everyone finally left the islands. It is unknown what happened to them after, but it can be assumed that they safely returned to Teyvat. Around this time, Domeki also returned to Sarai Island, only to find it in ruins from the massive battle that had been had, and Hibiki was nowhere to be found. He then decided to explore the world for Hibiki, and left on his final journey. Now, the next people who arrived on the island are some who we are very familiar with. So now, let's get into the story of the Midsummer Island Adventure event. In version 1.6, travelers could venture to the Golden Apple Archipelago alongside Jean, Barbara Klee, and other characters who would join them later on. There were many different games and events travelers could partake in, but I'm not here to talk about those. Instead, I'm going to talk about Klee's mother Alice and the potential for us to return to these islands in a future update. Sometime before the events of Midsummer Island Adventure, Alice visited the archipelago and fell in love with the absolute beauty and enchantment of the islands. As a gift for Klee and the ones who watched over her, she decided to transform the islands to a place filled with games, puzzles, and summer enchantment. While she was here, it is possible she could have saved Dongdong's father, who was trapped here. Dongdong is a child who lives in Qingsha village in Liyue. Anyways, the events of Midsummer Island Adventure would eventually occur. To sum it up briefly, Klee gets a letter from Dodo King, who threatens to take Klee's precious friend Dodoko away from her if she doesn't come to the Golden Apple Archipelago. Faced with no other choice, Jean, Barbara, and the Traveler accompany Klee to the islands with the help of Venti and Dvalin. After arriving on the islands, the group learned how to disperse the fog surrounding the islands, and also activated a mechanism that allowed the islands to rise out of the water. After some time exploring the islands, the group would be joined by Kaya, Diluc, Razor, and Albedo. Together, they would solve the mystery of who Dodo King was. It was none other than Klee's mother, Alice. Now, with that out of the way, I want to briefly go over some ideas I have about a potential return to these islands. I believe that the next event here will definitely be something different, as it'll probably be boring to have the same story again. Instead, I believe an event here could slightly further the plot of the Abyss, and potentially even allow for these islands to become a permanent part of the game, and not just a temporary area like they were in version 1.6. Perhaps the Abyss would be interested in the Magu Kenki that is just sitting on the central platform in the archipelago. Studying it could help them with their mechanical god plan, and it could even be the place where they would make said mechanical god. Think about it. The archipelago is far away from the mainland, it is usually hidden in fog, and not many people dare to even travel there. Adding to this, it is possible that the islands could get a complete revamp, with the plots of the Abyss causing changes in the land, perhaps creating new enemies and even a new permanent world boss for travelers to farm for ascension materials. It could also open up a new area below the islands, which could reveal the mechanism underneath, and open up another glimpse into the Abyss, like Enkanomiya. The possibilities really are endless for this area, and I would really like to see it return with a much bigger role sometime in the future. These islands already have so much lore, but there's always room for more. I would love to hear your thoughts about what they could do with the archipelago down below in the comments too. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video.